You're watching highlights of the Ravenna City Council meeting on August 10th, 2026.
Passed out a couple little handouts. I found this to be pretty comprehensive. These are, it shows the different types of bikes and then the requirements that go along with those bikes. This is from Parma Police Department. It was one of the more comprehensive ones that I found. So I wanted everybody to have a chance to look at that, because I know there's been questions, do these kids need driver's license? What are their age requirements? Should they have a plate? And this kind of covers that, because this is what the ORC shows, and with the regulations for these bikes. We do have some stuff in our ordinances, but we do need to tighten it up so that if there are problems in these individuals that are doing illegal, dangerous things with these bikes, they can be held accountable for our ordinances. So I just wanted to pass that out just to start a conversation, questions, things that everybody thinks should or should not be done based on this.
And if they had pedals and an engine, you could be 14 and actually get a driver's license or an endorsement license.
Certain ones are allowed, and it doesn't cover everything, but the second page will tell you that whether they're allowed on sidewalks, roadways, and again, this is state regulated. The state has kind of determined these requirements for these different class of vehicles. But none of them require, at this time, a driver's license or a license plate by the state of Ohio. The manufacturer that builds these bikes is required to put a sticker on them.
Okay.
That shows their horsepower, but basically their max speed and what type of bike they are, what class it is. But you're not going to see it unless you stop them and walk up and actually look at the bike.
Right.
But regardless of what type it is, no engine should be engaged while on sidewalks. It is strictly pedal driven at
Saying the
that.
one important distinction for Ravenna is a class 3 e-bike is different from the electric scooter. So that's the big thing in difference with, because that one is a person under 16 may not operate a class 3 electric.
The class 3 bike, the motor will assist in speeds up to 28 miles per hour. It's supposed to. Once it's supposed to have a speedometer on it, and once it hits that speed of 28 miles per hour, the motor is to disengage, and obviously unless it's been messed with a little bit. But that's it's supposed to disengage at that speed.
I mean, e-bikes are affordable form of transportation, especially with people who can't afford cars, and to get back and forth to work, or even college students and some of our high school students. I know the police have, it's helping a lot of emergency situations where the kids can't get to school, whether for transportation issues. So, going forward, that is something I think long-range plan that we need to look at, finding a safe place or a marked place on the roads for these bikes. If they're going to be on.
Well, they all are permitted on the sidewalk as well. Again, but the motor cannot be engaged. So, yeah, I mean, these things are here to stay. So we all have seen close accident, close calls. We've all heard about close calls. One of the things also that has been discussed is to put speed limits on our sidewalks. It's not real common, but it is has been done in certain areas. That's something that could be considered as well. I don't know how we're going to really be able to enforce that. And do you put speed limit signs on sidewalks? There's a lot that would go into that if we decide to go down that road.
I don't think the general population have any clue on any of the rules and any of the speed limit.
We're going to have new riders, right? New families this year, so continuing that education is going to be super important. And I think, sometimes we have to hear things more than once before we hear it or see it, so that's important. But that enforcement piece, like making sure we have what we need in our code so that if something happens and our police have to pull someone over, they have everything that they need to be able to enforce and put things in place.
If you look at just the Class 1 requirements, a couple things that are musts are they can't engage the motor and they must wear a helmet. And so we have violations of that a lot. What happens do they get a ticket? Do they get a warning? I'm not asking for answers. I'm just saying, what do we do with that? There's a lot there.
Yeah.
So, and does it only come into play when there's an accident? Or I don't know.
I think it's at a certain point you do have to hold them accountable. But, I think a lot of times warnings are given.
Yeah.
The hope that the educational piece sinks in and they start doing the right thing, but that's not always the case.
The other is some communities have chosen to license all of the e-bikes. Have we considered whether that would be something that would be helpful for us?
I mean, it's on the table right now. If it's
Okay.
something that we want to do as a
Yeah.
as
So
a
that,
council,
yeah,
we can discuss that for sure.
that may be a way of keeping track of at least what we've got out there. I don't know. It may be more burden than it's worth. I don't know. Last question that I have is, this is all e-bikes, which is great. What's the interplay of scooters and e-bikes? That may be a big discussion for later on, but as we talk about safety on the sidewalks, we've got this whole classification of scooters that are in multiple power ranges, and
Right.
I don't even know if they have classifications or where we go with those.
If you look at these things, these are not all state laws. There is no state law for a Class 1 or Class 2 e-bike. I've talked to parents who we've stopped their kids on the sidewalks, and after being upset, like, what do you want to do, ride on the road? And we don't really want to put a 14-year-old, because there's no law restricting a 14-year-old on an e-bike on the road. They're just like a pedal bike. They're allowed to be on the roadway. We are stopping them. We are stopping these kids on our side. We are talking. We are trying to get the education out there. It's a long process, like you said. Maybe not this generation, but the next generation that comes up, and the next generation, it'll get better. We have to be patient with them.
What can we do that is going to help the safety of the children and the safety of the residents who are, ultimately going to be the victims too?
I think the helmet law would help us. Currently, right now, if there's somebody's driving 28 miles an hour on a sidewalk on an e-bike, it's obvious. If they're just pedaling at a slow pace, we can't tell if it's engaged. If they're going uphill on a sidewalk and they're not pedaling, yes. But if they're going downhill, you can get moving on just a regular bike without a motor engaged.
Some of the programs in the past where you would see kids with helmets on, they'd give them a free ice cream cone and tell them thank you for wearing, promoting this is, a good thing to do. And maybe they'll tell their friends, hey, wearing helmets is a good thing, showing some positive engagement too. And then giving them like a little card of what the rules are along with that. I don't know. I'm just trying to think of some ways that, positive feedback will go a long ways. So I don't know if the committee would like to start maybe creating an ordinance with helmets that must be worn at least to the age of 18, where, an adult can make that decision, but a child must have it. And if they don't have it, then they would have to, get a ticket, the parent.
So there's some things we can do to help them out. But a helmet would be a real easy one. If they see someone without a helmet, boom, you stop them, you educate them, and move on.
We do not have any speed limit on the sidewalk. If somebody was going 50, you couldn't give them a ticket. So I definitely recommend that you set speed limit on the sidewalk. And I found that New York has a 5-mile-an-hour speed limit on all sidewalks in the state for all motorized vehicles. That would be electric or gas. I think we should have that here because the only things motorized that should be on our sidewalks with motors engaged are motorized wheelchairs and children's toys. And I recommend a 2-tier speed limit, probably 10 miles an hour for everybody else. That would be bicycles, joggers, whatever. Also, if you look at the bottom line on your handout for Parma, Ravenna law says no motors shall be engaged on the sidewalks. So we already have that law in Ravenna, but people need to know about it.
Right.
If you have an e-bike or a motorcycle, a gasoline motorcycle on the sidewalk, you should either be pedaling it or walking it. Another problem, I'm hoping the administration will encourage homeowners to not allow vegetation to narrow the sidewalk. 2 of the close calls I've had where vegetation is about halfway across the sidewalk, the bike riders think basically they own the sidewalk and the pedestrians should get out of their way. They were coming at me and their side was closed. They just came over on my side and I stepped off the sidewalk and let them go by. These riders don't even slow down for pedestrians.
But in the last 3 weeks, the governor of Ohio signed a bill that if someone kills somebody or injures them terribly on an e-bike, they are liable up to vehicular homicide. Okay? I don't know if anybody saw that or not, but it's passed. Now, that brings a question of insurance. So, if somebody kills somebody, whose insurance covers it? Okay? I go out there in a vehicle, and rightfully so, the police pull me over for something. They want to see my insurance and my driver's license and my registration. So these people on these bikes that could kill somebody and be held liable don't have to have any of those.
I wonder if it would go under their homeowner's insurance, and if they have if they come from rentals, they possibly may not have rental insurance. I'm just thinking that it would probably classify under homeowner's insurance.
In the last week, I've watched the same kid on downtown streets here with a mini bike. Now, we're not talking about an electric bike. We're not talking about a scooter. We're talking about, they sell them out at the tractor store. They got wheels about this big and they're fat, and it's run by an 8 to 10 horsepower gas motor, no safety equipment, no brakes or anything, zipping on the city streets, no, not streets, the sidewalks at 30, 35 miles an hour, okay? You need to address that too, that those aren't allowed.
Can I ask a question? So I'm hearing like you stop them. So after they're stopped, then what happens? Are you just said don't do that, or what happens?
It's a discretion officer. You can give them a ticket for riding
Okay.
on the sidewalk, or you can give them a warning and send them home.
I have witnessed in the last 2 weeks 4-wheel ATVs, unlicensable, on the city streets on Main Street, parking in a parking space and going into the bar. Okay? What do we do about that? they're using the road that taxes pay for, and I have to have a license to drive on the street. And that license gives money for the upkeep and everything else for the street. But they don't have to have it. Golf carts. It's gone crazy. The other night, I had 4 different ones come by me that were not legal. You can have a legal golf cart on the street. It has to have all the safety equipment. It has to have brakes, which a lot of them have. It has to have lights. It has to have legal tires for road use, because golf cart tires are not made, it says right on them, not for street use. None of these had that. They were right off the golf course. Somebody bought them. And there isn't a day that I don't drive through town here, somebody has one that they've just purchased probably on the back of a trailer. Okay, it's going to get bigger and bigger on that. I think you need to address several things besides that, because if not, you're going to have to come back to do that. So I think you might want to add those to it. It's out of hand up there.
The Portage County Health District does have a relationship with Put a Lid on It, and it's to do bike helmets for kids. So maybe that's something that, as we're exploring this down the road, to reach out to them, see if they can help get some possible funding so that if kids don't have helmets, there's no excuse. So it's a lot of layers to that onion.
There definitely is. Any other comments before we? Would you be okay at this point if we have something next week in regard to helmets, or would you feel better holding off on that until we kind of put more of a complete package together?
I think helmets is almost a no-brainer for us. I'm completely in favor of it to put it in, and the only reason that I would say no is if you want to put it all in one package that we put together a little bit later, that would be okay. But if you feel like a helmet one is good, I think helmet is very
Helmet requirement.
yeah, very appropriate. Very appropriate. At least we're going to watch out for the safety of their heads for,
Yeah, and then the speed,
Yeah.
it can be hard to judge at times. That's a no-brainer. They can see that, so.
Okay.
We'll go ahead and move that one item forward, continue working on this issue. We have a management update for streets and sidewalks.
So the 2026 stormwater infrastructure improvements has a value of $133,000. There are 3 locations that will receive improvements. The first one is North Scranton Street, between Main Street and Mechanic, almost to Mechanic, which would be catch basins and storm pipe. Second location is the ditch along North Freedom Street, just north of Co Road, basically where the bike trail is. It's eroding quickly, so there would be, the storm project is to shore up that ditch so the road doesn't fall in. And then the third is continuing Jones Avenue storm project, which we've been working on for quite a while. So those were the 3 projects.
All right. So this item will be moving forward.
So we've had a couple meetings with the representative from 811, and we believe there'll be less than 500 notifications a year in Ravenna. But I can tell you from a roadway work permit that we issue, I don't believe we've even issued 50 a year. So there's a lot of folks that are calling 811 asking utilities to be marked that we're not even aware of. But what we haven't done over the years is charged a roadway work permit. We charge a bond for contractors that are working on water, storm, and sanitary in case they screw something up, our main line. We have some money set aside, but we don't do that for the roadways. So we're looking at potentially charging for roadway work permits, which we will then know once they call.
But I know that it's been in the news lately with utility lines being struck with catastrophic damage. And I know you'll have to remind everybody when it was, but I think it was about 3 months ago. There was a project in front of UH Portage where something was hit and they potentially almost lost water.
I just was trying to understand the logistics of how we will be getting the notifications that go to the state. Will we be hiring someone in between to process those to us? Or is there?
We'll try to do it in-house. There'll be, I believe, 6 of us on the email request. And it's going to predominantly be Mike Reynolds and then Dominic and I. Whoever gets to it first can cancel it out or notify street department to mark the utility billing to mark their water service.
And you're estimating that there may be as many as 500 a year that are going to come through like this that you'll have to make decisions on?
Correct. Many of them, I believe, we won't have to mark utilities. Many of them will be a fence in the backyard or foundation for a garage in the backyard, that sort of thing, which we're.
When you say we mark utilities, our personnel will go out and mark them? Oh, wow.
Which we've been doing when notified.
First up is ward redistricting. So for those that are listening or sitting out in the audience and haven't heard of this, it's been about 70 years since the city has been looked at as far as where our wards are drawn and what that means in terms of voter representation. Mr. Harper's ward, Ward 3, is the last time that we had redistricting, they had not built Anavar and I think most of Diamond Hills. So, for instance, his ward has over 1,000 more people in it than the one next to it. So it's very disproportionate. And the League of Women Voters reached out because they've been looking at communities throughout the state to see which ones had the most disproportionment. And it just so happens that out of all the communities in Ohio, Ravenna was ranked number 2 as the most disproportionate as far as voter representation, where you have the ward council people have vastly different numbers of people. So we are working in conjunction with the League of Women Voters to go through a process to redraw these ward maps. And for the people who have been part of it, thank you. It's been great. But now we are going to be taking this more into the public forum, and we are looking for as much feedback and interaction as possible. I would like to have at least 2 opportunities for the public to come and not only look at the ones that some of the members of this ad hoc committee have put together, but give people in the general public in Ravenna a chance to create their own. And we'll make available the link that you can use with the instructions on how you can move the lines around and see where it moves. And a number of people have used this. For those of you who have used it, did you find it was fairly simple to move the lines around and create the maps? Okay.
I did.
So we will have those available on display, and then an opportunity for the community to give their feedback. Because one thing that the League of Women Voters is stressing is keeping the character of the neighborhoods together and not splitting things up. We have like 2 really definite boundaries in the city where everything, so on the north-south, everything's split by 59. And then going, if splitting the city into east and west, it's 44, yeah, Chestnut Street. And so all of these maps, no matter which way you put it, is going to be shifting those boundaries either a little bit north or south of 59 or east or west of 44.
Well, I was going to say it needs to be completed before January because of some of the elections that are happening. So especially with some of the ward council people, how it could affect who runs, because it could add people or take people out of that ward. So that's really important to understand.
Correct. So that is the reason that we need to kind of move this, and especially Dr. Kalfi announced at our last meeting that he would not be seeking reelection, so that's a perfect example. Would we be able to put on the city website the link for making those maps with the instructions that Jen sent, so people are able to get us their versions where they'd like to see those maps? And we'll do a little presentation there too about why this is happening, what it means, and how the process, it's actually a fairly simple process. It's just up to each city to what degree they want to engage the public, because this is not something that goes on the ballot. This is something that council would ultimately vote on, but this is definitely something that the more public interaction we have with it, the better.
There's two places that define bound wards. Unfortunately, we have to have 4 wards because that's in the charter, so unless, we put a ballot initiative to change the charter, we can't add or subtract wards. But the boundaries and where they're delineated is in a code, so we would, as part of this process, once we pick a proposed change, then it's just up to council to approve that code change.
But there's certain ways we have to actually move the boundary, and that's guided by the Ohio Revised Code. And we will have people there from the Ohio League of Women Voters that can probably, to way more detail, answer these questions and kind of clarify any confusion on that. There's some concerns in the city overall with these multifamily housing units. And it kind of made me wonder what exactly are the parameters for Ravenna? What do we expect in a multifamily housing unit? And it's actually, in comparison to other communities, it's pretty bare bones as far as not talking about the setbacks and the front yards and side yards, but the actual living spaces, the square footage that people are going to be occupying. So I do have this proposal that I made for Ravenna's multifamily units, and so my ultimate goal of this proposal will be to adopt the Ohio Housing Finance Agency, the OHFA requirements for housing. It will help Ravenna realize its 2050 comprehensive master plan goal of establishing more affordable housing while simultaneously protecting current and future property values. The Ohio Housing Finance Agency, the OHFA, the space requirements are tiered by bedrooms. So in efficiency or studio, you have to have 450 square feet. A 1-bedroom, 550 square feet. A 2-bedroom, 750 square feet, a 3-bedroom, 950 square feet, and 4 bedrooms or more, 1,100 square feet. So in a home rule city like Ravenna, you can create your own requirements. And so for those of you who don't know, in Ravenna, it's 550 square feet exclusive of the basement for multifamily and 720 square feet for a duplex. So the Ohio Building Code focuses only on what is necessary for survival and safety. So you're talking bare minimum. What kind of square footage would you need to say that this person is living in a human habitat with the bare minimum of safety requirements, and that's its only focus? The OHFA focuses on livability and quality of life, because you'll notice by the differences with the OHFA FA requirements, it's quite a bit more space, and it makes sense. So there's a second reason that this is important. So if you are a community that wants to attract builders or investors that want to use the low-income housing tax credit program, you have to be basing your requirements off of the OHFA for them to be eligible for that funding. And I'm thinking of the people who are going to be renting these spaces too. Because if you have a builder who just wants to build according to the Ohio Building Code or something minimal versus somebody who's more interested in using those tax credits and leveraging it to build more sustainable spaces. And even these spaces are not that big. For the OHFA. So for me, it's a livability and quality of life issue. And the reason why I make that claim that it's going to protect current and future property values, because it is more space and does require more. You're talking about people that are going to be investing in these properties, that are more investing in creating a space that is livable in every sense of the word and offer that quality of life. And hopefully then those people would stay and become more invested stakeholders in the community. At the end of the day, what I really kind of fell on was this OHFA space requirements, and mostly because it is tied to making people eligible for that low-income housing tax credit. And that is going to open it up to people, again, who are going to make better housing than what we have available now with our 550 square feet and 720 square foot for duplexes. I don't know how you could possibly vote on bringing a multifamily home to the community without those things solidified and didn't even meet the setback requirements. And there's this trust that goes with it, that your governments and local municipalities are creating their codes and designing them for not only your safety, but for your living and for your best interests. So overall, that is my assessment of where I think we should go in terms of the square footage and how that's determined on the insides of these properties. There's a lot of people who buy these places as investments and they don't live anywhere near here.
Correct.
And so whenever there's issues and problems, it's really hard to get to a space of resolving them because you don't have anybody to get a hold of. And by the way, this is not something unusual. This 24/7 local contact, this was something common in most communities that we do not have here. The other thing that I saw come up in other communities was requiring inspections of rental units. Some communities even do them as much as twice a year, although I think that's a little out there, and increasing penalties for noncompliance.
When I know that these places are trying to be turned into multifamily, and I know about them now, I do my best to show up because these are things that we had talked about years ago and tried to stop. But there's those conditional uses, and we depend on Planning Commission and the zoning, and somehow they get by. So again, if we want to make our community a better community, there are changes like this that have to happen, and the enforcement that have to go along with that.
So, I mean, I'm not debating with you the changes, I'm just saying what you want to do is going to require all those, different 6 sections need to be changed, and that's fine.
And this model is the one this is the only model that you can use that's tied to making somebody eligible for the low-income housing tax credits. Using the Ohio building code, that doesn't make you eligible for any type of funding using that. And again, it's there, but it's just sort of the most bare minimum that you could ever offer somebody, for a human to live in those spaces. I don't know many people who could live in 190 square feet. That is.
We've had landlords
Yes.
that have had people living in closets.
There's a lot of essentially homes. There are now 5-unit multifamily dwellings, and 2 of those units at least don't have any accessibility to a kitchen. So they have refrigerators like in a family room type den that would be a square footage area, that they would put a refrigerator into a corner and have a hot plate, and they would use their bathroom sink to wash dishes and whatnot. We're in these houses all the time. I'm just saying there's a hot plate there, and actually we don't go and inspect these places because they're resident.
So the answer to your question is, we don't have that requirement now. But other communities did have that in there, that they have to have access, and they talked about the types of appliances that made a kitchen.
Yeah, is if you're going from a 5-unit, and we have firmer restrictions are on it, now maybe it's only going to be a 3-unit, which, okay, they're not going to get the revenue for having 2 more families living in there, but it's a safer environment, and obviously probably brings a higher value to that.
Dwelling units means one or more rooms providing complete living facilities for one family, including equipment for cooking or provisions for the same, and including room or rooms for living, sleeping, and eating, except that for purposes of this zoning code, a mobile home should not be used as a dwelling unit. So that might need to be adjusted.
But it's not different, because we're still talking rentals. We're still talking, you can rent a single bedroom, 4 people, and have a single bedroom and a common kitchen.
Yeah, but that wouldn't be
Common recreation
considered,
area.
according to our definitions, that wouldn't be considered a multifamily dwelling.
That's how it's being treated, because we don't have another way to treat it.
Well, I do have a question. These space requirements, if we make this change, how does it affect existing multifamily units?
It wouldn't, they're grandfathered in.
Everyone currently
Yes.
that has these.
You can't legally do that. You would never win in court. That's what it would take. If it was unoccupied, if it had a conditional use and it was not utilized for 12 months, then that conditional use or non-conforming use falls off,
Right.
according to our code. Then it would resort back to the original intended use, probably single
The
family.
more we talk about this, the more changes to our zoning code we really need to take.
And then we have to do it.
But I would say this, I think for this discussion, I understand what you're saying about boarding houses, and maybe that's a future discussion.
Rooming houses.
Rooming houses. Maybe we could just bite off this chunk now.
Sure.
And
I
think
see what he's saying, though, because right now, the one that we do have is unoccupied, so we do have an opportunity.
Yeah,
You do.
okay. I just don't want to bog council down with too many changes.
One of our issues is, at some point in the last 30, 40, 50 years, City Council decided to zone West Main Street C1. So we're sort of stuck with a residential, but yet they're allowed to bring in a business. And they have. So it's something I think this council is facing. Do you turn it back to R3? Because that isn't, my opinion, that's how those homes on West Main Street were built, to be residential. I'm imagining council at the time thought this was going to be good for economic development. It hasn't turned very well for economic development. But also, when we talk about zoning and setbacks, we would, in essence, being 45 feet wide, it'll never meet the current code, so you would render it useless, or...
It
But
was
we're stuck with the
dental.
code we have now. And the only way that property, that building could become a multi-family dwelling is if there's a variance for those setbacks. That's the only way it can happen.
Bob, it was a dental office for many, many years.
You say it was or was not?
It was a dental office.
Correct. And then
For many years.
allegedly the person sold real estate or insurance also after it was a dental office. That was the last business use, supposedly.
So we need to clean it up. And, I mean, it's been inhabitable for quite some time.
You wouldn't define multifamily as 2 or more?
Well,
we
if you look in
have-
the definition, there's a definition for duplex, and there's a separate definition for multifamily. But because there's no specific mention of duplex in C1, I think you'd have to assume that it's multifamily. That's the way I think it should be interpreted. Maybe another area to fix, that maybe we need to add duplex to, as a conditional use, instead of just the multifamily, and then you can have your own sort of conditions for that.
Well, again, the ones that we have, these 4 and 5 tenants in are they're hard on neighborhoods.
And it's an
And-
injustice to the people that are
Yeah,
renting these spaces.
absolutely.
That this is considered a livable space.
It's not fair, the amount that they're getting paid to live there, or, that the landlord is getting, and the quality of life these individuals are receiving. It's awful.
A multifamily is a dwelling designed or occupied by 3 or more families living independent of each other. We do have a definition of it.
That's unrelated people, or is that?
It says independent of each other. I don't know. So, yeah, how does-
Some of these other ones, I know like in Twinsburg, they went out of their way to say that they have to be, that they're non-related.
well, Kent went to the Supreme Court over that, and I think they lost.
And I mean, honestly, this is something, I've only lived in Ravenna since 2019, and I've watched 3 properties, they're directly behind me, but they face Main Street, and they have all been bought by outside investors that don't live in the community. And so I can't do anything about what's done, but I would like to do something expeditiously about the future, because I think that this is going to be trending. And I know there's federal stuff happening about outside investors being able to buy a certain amount of properties, but I mean, I don't want to hold my breath and wait for the federal government on anything.
I mean, this is a community. It's not a let's get rich. You know, we don't want these people to come here, get rich off our community and, you know, not abide by any of the rules or care about the neighborhoods. We have to have standards, and we have to follow them, and we have to create them. And what doesn't work, we need to fix. And I'm totally done with these people because it's a lot. It's a lot that it's been problems with our police department. It's problems on our fire department. It's problem on City Hall. I mean, the list goes on the problems that it creates in our community and the unnecessary issues.
What the chief mentioned, though, we do have the definition of what we have to have in a dwelling. But I mean, I could see how they could interpret hot plate as.
Oh, that hot plate caused a fire on Walnut Street. We've already had that in the one multifamily. Absolutely. And that's one that it's living in a bedroom, making a lot of money and a chronic problem.
So, Mr. Finney, do you know of is there ways that you have to specify what type of an appliance means something to prepare food, or is hot plate always going to meet the definition?
Yeah, if it's listed as such, it will. But I understand what Mark is saying, in that this specific bedroom only had access to the outside and did not have a true kitchen. Well, that's true. Now they have access to the other unit. Yeah, I wish you'd let it burn, though. Let it go. Stop putting them out, would you?
And
my name is Rich Edmiston, Richard, if you don't mind. And you said you've been here for 7 years, Carmen. I've been here for 4 months. Bought our house on Madison and Riddle in January. We moved in March. And I was initially going to speak on what the chief spoke on. I'm going to table that for a second. Bought it from a flipper. Now, I've been a contractor. I've been around the world. I know stuff. And I knew I bought it from a flipper. But the stories you're telling me, the condenser, I was in the air conditioning business for 13 years. Condenser in a driveway. I know that the building code in Ravenna says significant changes to an air conditioning system requires a permit. No offense, not telling anyone how to do their job. I promise you that. Installing a new AC system when one didn't exist before is a significant change. It should have been permitted. Stop work orders. That's it. My entire house should have had a stop work order put on it, probably. Now I'm fixing things as I go along. What really struck me on that, wanted me to get involved, and I'll go to what the chief was saying, 4, 5, 6 family houses, or not even family houses, these beautiful, stunning old homes that are turned into 4, 5, 6 unit houses, and who knows what's inside them. Maybe there's 12. The safety hazard. A hot plate on a fire, it's amazing nobody's been killed. And I'm new to town. Again, I'm not here to make waves. I'm just telling you what I love about the town. And change is hard. I've seen change. Change is really hard, but let's do it, please. It's up to y'all. And hopefully me in the future one day. But I'm not. That's why I'm here. So thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
thank you.
And I do think that there's nothing wrong with making waves. There's nothing wrong with making waves. At least I don't think so. All right. So as far, just to really quick circle back to the kitchen issue. So is that something where you could say it has to be a stove, a refrigerator, and a sink? Do you have to like explicitly say those things?
If somebody wants to rent out and it's zoned correctly, don't they have to get a certificate of occupancy for each unit?
Not necessarily.
Well, I think that's where maybe we want to start, because that would be the process where we would inspect before it became, if it was new, before it became a rental unit, and then the judgment would be, is this a dwelling unit? So if you just walked in there and saw a hot plate and a bucket, that's not a kitchen and a bathroom, right? And, that's an extreme example, but I mean, that's kind of what I'm thinking.
But we can
Space
change that,
requirements.
right?
We cannot change that unless it's a new proposal. The planning commission can place conditions as they see fit. In that case, they could. But the existing rental properties, we cannot change them. It was challenged, it's a violation of the Fourth Amendment of the Constitution.
Yeah.
The most important thing for me tonight is to move this OHFA metric forward at least, because as somebody who sat on planning commission for a while, it is helpful to have something that is done, it's delineated by bedroom. Because I think when you're looking at an overall square footage, it's hard to imagine, and maybe people don't know to ask the right questions, like, are we including closet space in that? How much of that is living space versus bathrooms versus kitchen or whatnot? And so I think this is just a very easy to interpret. And again, I really think incentivizing maybe different types of investors by adopting the OHFA, it leaves those people eligible to get the low-income housing tax credits to be able to do that, because that's the formula that works with that. So I do think it makes it easier for Planning Commission to make decisions based on that. I would hate to be on Planning Commission and think that I was approving a unit and it was going to be one person living there, and find out that they crammed a family of 5 people in a small space like this. And the way that we have things written now, that's a possibility. And I think that this is going to be, again, it's something that's going to protect quality of life. And again, it doesn't go backwards. I can't fix that, but we can fix it going forward.
Cheryl Wood, 1083 Susan Road. You're talking about OFA tax credits, you're talking about zoning changes, different things of that nature. I'm going to go back to something that I pushed for several years while I sat in your same seat. We have the new comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan was done in order to review and redo our zoning codes. This is a perfect time to me because it looks like there are a lot of things that are spot changing, or requests that are spot changing in the zoning. Spot zoning changes are hazardous to a community. Going back to the tax credits, I'm a big fan of OHFA, Ohio Housing Finance Agency tax credit programs. I worked on them for years. Great programs for developers to be able to do large multifamily complexes. Small single-family homes, duplexes, anything 1 to 4 units is not going to be anything that's going to get a tax credit. Just isn't. It's not large enough. And there's a lot of percentages and numbers that go into the required matches for the tax credit projects, including historic tax credits. Yeah, but start from the beginning, redo the zoning code entirely. Don't do spot zoning. Don't catch yourself up in a loop going after one project at a time. Just look at the overall picture. Imagine if something unfortunate happened to our city and it was wiped out. How would we want to see it in the future? How do we want to see it rebuilt? What would we change for that future? Build Ravenna the right way for the future. Thank you.
This is why I wanted this OHFA to be applied to all the different residential, even if they're not technically in the city. They're at least on the list, R1 and R6. We have it listed, but we don't actually have it.
True.
But who knows? The city could change. Hopefully it doesn't get all wiped out, but we're starting over.
So my question's going to be the same as last month. We have 2 weeks between now and the committee of the whole. Will you have code changes for the committee of the whole to consider? Because, as I said the last time, the devil's in the details. How you write those changes is going to be what the council as a whole needs to consider. And I can't say that you can't move it on, but we won't have, I don't know how the committee of the whole can move something on if they don't have something tangible.
However, what the Ohio Ethics Commission recommends as far as recusing yourself from a conflict of interest, this is where we do fall a little bit short. Because it says in Part N, no member of the commission shall vote on any question before the commission in which he or she has a personal or pecuniary interest. That's it. So what they recommend, and I'm sorry, I'll have to write this, is that we also include that there be, the commission member with the conflict shall refrain from voting, discussing, reviewing, recommending, inspecting, investigating, or taking any other action on the matter of which they have a personal or pecuniary interest. So it's just adding all those other items so that if there is a conflict of interest, at least we have it explicitly spelled out that it's not just the vote that they have to recuse themselves from, but all of the discussion leading up to it. So that's actually a recommendation from the Ohio Ethics Commission. So I would just be asking that council would consider basically incorporating the Ohio Ethics Commission recommendation into the design review guidelines and not just leave it at vote. This is something that was inadvertently left out the last time. It reads, the commission shall be obligated to meet up to 2 times to consider an application if the applicant wishes, and the commission shall meet at no longer than 2-week intervals. Actually, I have this note here, it's addressed if they don't. So it doesn't address what happens if the commission doesn't meet, if they don't have a quorum. So there just needs to be some language there to protect the applicants should the commission not be able to convene a meeting. When I was thinking about some conflict with some of the business that we had in the historic downtown, and it was learning for me because it does say that Ohio best practices says that there should be business owners on that. But then I also saw that the recommendation from the Ohio Ethics Commission provides a lot more guidance when it comes to a conflict of interest than what we presently have written here, which is something I would have never even have thought to look into, to be honest with first.
The conflict of interest document that you shared with us is 28 pages long, and that section that you're referring to might be good if it could be called out to us to look at that. You don't have to do it right now. I'm just saying I'd like to look at that.
It's a list of bullet pointed things.
Yeah,
But yeah, please do.
I'd like to look at that before the discussion takes place on that issue.
But the question is, when do people have the right to appeal to council?
Well, that's after 2 denials or
It said
this.
after 2 meetings,
Right.
and the statement you wrote said, or 30 days after the first meeting.
Does council have a problem revisiting that? Or the committee have a problem revisiting that?
You want to put the 30 days back in?
Yes.
Okay. You want to get an argument for me?
I already know I got your vote. No, wait.
I don't
There's
get
a
the
tie.
vote. That's
Okay.
fine.
But for that, because now that it takes care of that contingency. And then the big thing is for everyone to get a chance to review the Ohio Ethics Commission guidelines on recusal. Because these only just say recuses from the vote, the one that we have now. So they could still theoretically participate in the discussion and potentially influence said vote.
No, I think it's a good change.
So do we want to move it to committee of the whole with that discussion? I'm comfortable with that.
I'm fine with it, absolutely.
It's our annual insurance renewal for property and casualty, yes. Some comprehensive lists of all of our vehicles, our equipment, our assets, leases. And we go through a whole review of all that, then they shop it out and get quotes. And hopefully it's favorable to what we paid last year. We'll see. I know my own homeowners policy was higher, so I'm curious to see if, what kind of rates this brings. Yes, and I mean, we've had moderate increases, but I think it's been pretty good. So hopefully, and I'll compare it to last year's, I'll see where we were last year's.
And we will have this prior to the committee of the whole meeting?
I hope so. I hope so.
When is these are expiring September 14th?
September 14th is when our new policy should go into effect, yeah.
It seems like they already did the work and they're just holding us hostage for the money, but I don't know, maybe I'm not understanding. My simple question, I'll let you take the floor, Mr. Finney, is why would we do this now as opposed to when and if the ballot initiative is approved?
If the ballot initiative is approved, we're locked into potentially a $25 million project. Task A was $7,000, provide a suggested total budget based on conceptual design. Or task B, so we could choose A or B. Task B was a lot more in-depth for $14,000, which would be interviewing key individuals, establish a long-term and personal needs, which I'm not 100% sure what that is, but then provide a concept based on what we're looking for. They would suggest refinements to get what we are looking for, and then provide a budget, and obviously present it to council for the November ballot.
I can't see spending that $14,000 right now either. I think that would be a waste of money, because if it doesn't pass, then we're out of that $14,000, and then you're down another year or so, and that number's going to change again. So then you're out more money. So I can't see spending that money now.
As people are asking a lot of questions on social media about, did we try any other types of funding, specifically grants? And I would like to let people know, as we are headed into election season, that we had two people, David Joyce and Heidi Workman, that we applied, or Mr. Finney applied for grants for this project. And we were denied for every single penny of it. And reading in the paper that available funding went to things like,
Parks.
I'm not saying that playgrounds and sprinkle pads aren't important, but when you're talking about places for our safety forces, for people who risk their lives to protect ours, and that wasn't seen as a priority, that people need to know that those efforts were made by the city, and it was rejected by the people that were elected to represent our interests. And I think that they failed on those accounts.
Ravenna, being the county seat, mind you, we got nothing. And, I believe our elected officials that you spoke of did tour the fire department herself and could not believe the condition that the police and fire were in. So for not getting any funding, I'm a little heartbroken that we got no advocacy from the federal and the state level for that.
But people need to know that those efforts were in fact made.
Yeah, it's all public record. Look it up. So we have additional funding for the cold storage on Spruce Street. So I don't know if you remember, we were given a price and we actually appropriated an amount of money for the extra storage for the fire truck. But the money, when we actually got the quote in, it's a little different now. So there's some different options to talk about and think about because the price difference is a little different.
Obviously, everybody in this room knows that we are like in a major crunch for space in our fire department, in our station. And we currently have an engine down at the cold storage unit. And last winter, there's no heat in that building, so we actually had to rent another building off of Cleveland Road for about 5 months, just so the pump and the water tank would not freeze on that apparatus. It's bad enough having it there being compromised with heat, let alone being off station, because an emergency vehicle does us no good 6 blocks away. It just does us no good. My concern personally is that that option going to last us the duration of time that we need it to last even though it's $100,000 cheaper. And this is how I look at things. And maybe I'm not right with my logic, but I just think of this. If I'm looking at my house and I want to add a garage onto my house, I want to add a garage on my house to make that property value good, like appreciate, and also have the ability to, it's going to last. I don't want to put a carport on it that I'm only going to get a certain amount of time on it and truly doesn't really have any value to it in the long term. I'm kind of mixed on which way to go. I mean, ultimately, I'm going to have something to put a piece of apparatus in, and that suffices. I'm asking council, where do we feel the money is best spent? On option A or option B? And I don't know. I mean, you could look at the money, the value that's on the lean-to building, and it comes to $40,000, but that's not adding any of the concrete, the electrical, the heating, anything. No, it's our second due engine. So it's not an extra. We don't really have anything extra, but it's our second due engine that is out, and we use it, I don't want to say quite regularly, but regular enough, because our frontline engine has to go through PMs. We have a warranty issue right now. It's going to be gone probably the engine ladder that we're buying has a 75-foot ladder on it. So we're killing two birds with one stone with the new piece of apparatus. Those will be able to facilitate in the current station. But something has to go down to the cold storage building or to another off-site facility to keep it housed. We don't have the room. The project itself was kind of complicated, and they bid it up higher because of it being somewhat kind of as a bowstring roof.
We had one bid, which was Hummel Construction, and when I spoke to Marty, he said these were his prices. This is how it came up. He didn't anticipate it.
So, and you don't have to agree with me. That's fine. I'm not right. I'm not always right. I'm not saying that, but I'm trying to say, for the investment of the city, I'm looking at it as a city investment. Where would I put my money, and where is my return for the funds I'm willing to spend? And if you're asking me, I would put it on Plan A and not Plan B. Worst case scenario, let's just say we can't do anything this year. I guess my next thing would be is to come to the council and say, can you give us an appropriation and an increase in our small capital, and we can put heat in the cold storage building that we have and electric in there so that we can actually keep our own apparatus on our own city property.
Suit or any kind of vehicle involved, and that's why it's difficult. When we cannot get into the vehicle to process until we get a search warrant. We have to back it straight into that building, and the only way to get a wrecker into that building is straight on, and then that ends up blocking the fire truck, which is parked in the back corner.
Ryan is pretty well certified for oil changes and PMs that we do on all of our own apparatus. We keep that in-house, which saves the money with my budget for sending that out to repair a lot. But we can't do it in the station that we have and tie up a bay and try to still get other apparatus out. So trying to add on or take over a portion of that building now gives us the room to be able to work on things in an environment that we're not always begging Bobby to help us out, or we have to pull everything out of our own station just to do a simple oil change.
So part of this that worries me a little bit is we are also going to be paying for the fire truck next year out of this same budget, but that's why I didn't want to make this sole decision on this, because what is the cost benefit of having this building? You know, exactly what Mark's talking about.
And I'm not opposed of this scratching this whole thing if we can work something out where we can actually, without killing either one of our small capital budgets, those monies are already pretty much appropriated to other things. They have funding put into there where we could put heat, water, additional electric, at least get us by through this year and revisit things next year, especially if the levy passes, and then we know that we're going to be getting a station. Maybe it just buys us more time. But we can't, what I'm getting at is, we can't continue to live the way we're living, how we're doing it. So we got to be able to put money somewhere to facilitate our housing.
But your old ladder will not fit inside of that building.
No, it won't. That really does put me in a predicament because the door height is not high enough for me to get the ladder in there.
The steel structure, I have no reason to believe that it would not last 40 or 50 years, especially if it's heated. It might even go longer, because then it would dry itself out with heat. There's been different discussions, cut a hole in the side of the existing Quonset hut, lower the floor, so the ladder can get in, because the ladder is 11 and a half feet tall. The steel structure will come and be installed by the manufacturer. They will install it for the city. It'll have 2 garage doors and a man door, just like we're, plus it'll be insulated. So then we would just have to run electric through and gas through for the heater and electric.
And then you're still within budget?
Well, that would be somewhere in the 140 range. The city would end up being the general contractor, subbing the pieces and parts out.
Well, you're right. What they have there now is not going to fit what is needed, and it's just going to be an ongoing issue. And I do feel that if a new city hall is built, a new fire department is built, this structure also can be used for street department, multiple things. I'm okay with what's budgeted in the steel structure, honestly. I think that's the most logical thing to do. I'm not comfortable with an extra $100,000 right now. I don't think that that's a good use of funds right now, with everything going on and the possibility of a new fire department, and especially with the new truck that Tammy just shared as well. I mean, we have a lot of things going on. I don't want to put us in a financial strain. And that's my thought.
Move forward with, even though it's budgeted, to approve those appropriations so we can move this project on. Because the project's going to be about a 7 to 8 week project.
Right.
And I really would like to have it completed. Well, Sullivan's been doing a phenomenal job on our engine ladder. And they've already knocked almost 3 months off of our delivery date time, and it wouldn't surprise me if they dropped another at least a month and a half off, and we got it even earlier, which would put us like Christmas time.
It sounds like the biggest portion of this may come with the concrete.
And we don't want to pour concrete in December.
We were going to get the concrete done in the next month.
Okay, we're good to move it forward. We're going to go ahead and move this forward with an emergency clause so we can get this started. Okay? Okay.
We already participate in the Medicaid program, the ambulance runs, and we collect money from those bills that are submitted. This is going to pull down some of the federal funding that isn't already being used, and the state will provide us with some additional supplemental funding. It's not a new service. It's not a new anything that we have to do. It'll be implemented through Life Force, but in order to participate, we have to sign the MOU to be included in the program.
Pretty much housekeeping is something that we have to do, and it's Medicaid, so we depend on Medicaid for funding.
Yeah, another neighboring community, they looked at this a few weeks before us, and they're looking at somewhere between $90,000 and $100,000 additional. So based on our call volume, it should probably be somewhere between $50,000 and $75,000 additional to us.
Mental health happens 24/7. I think a lot of people don't realize the strain it puts on our community, and especially our officers and our medics as well. We had a situation over the weekend, and it was a couple times on the same individual, but lately we've become a place where people are dropping people off that are victims, that it's really sad. And I'm really frustrated that nobody will pick up the phone for our men and women that are trying to help people, because it's not fair to the people who are going through these crises, and it's not fair to the people in uniform who are working with, situations that other calls are coming in that are, critical as well. And some of these calls that we're talking about are taking 3 officers, 3 medics, and they can end up becoming deadly because of not the mental care that is being needed for these individuals. And plus, it affects the safety of our shop owners, our businesses in our downtown. They're being victimized by these individuals, and it's also affecting neighborhoods. They're showing up. We had a lady show up at one of our businesses over the weekend sleeping under the tree, a senior citizen. It's a lot. So I don't know if everybody's aware of some of these things, but we're going to all need to work together on getting support and making some of these people be held accountable for the funding and getting the help that we deserve, especially when some of the millions of dollars are going through some of these agencies and some of the rental properties that we're dealing with that are housing, and they're supposed to be taking care of with case management, some of these individuals, and it's terrifying. So I know if that was my loved one, I would be really upset that they're being victimized by some of the things that are going on. So we've got some problems here, and it's not going to be an easy fix, but we've got to take control of this, or it's only going to get worse.
We're spending a lot of time dealing with this situation. I mean, it's almost daily. With that.
Especially the weekends and evenings, it's
And
constant.
The answer that they give is, I can't do it. We cannot accept that because we will be dumped on constantly. We're paying for the one that is having an open house, and they're just getting started. We can run them a little bit of slack, but they need to answer the phone when we call. There's a reason that we're calling for. We don't do stuff willy-nilly with this, but it's and just when you think they're making headway, another crew shows up that we know nothing about with this. So, but we're actively pursuing.
That's our wrap from the council tonight. Lots of deep dives on e-bike safety and helmet rules, tougher housing and rental standards, ward redistricting, and how to give police and fire the space and funding they need, plus some pointed talk about ethics and mental health services. Several items, from sidewalk safety and helmets to new ward maps and fire apparatus storage, are headed to upcoming meetings, so keep an eye on future highlight reels to see how these pieces take shape.